Okay, good evening everyone. Shalom Aleichem. Baruchim Haba. We're continuing our shiurim on Sefer Bereshis, which are generously sponsored by Dr. Zakim and Mishpachta Lila Nishmas of Shom Eliezer ben Rabbi Yaakov Zakim, Lila Nishmas Rivka Bas Tavi Halevi, and Rab David ben Rabbi Yaakov Tzvi HaKohen. This week's shiur is dedicated anonymously as a zechus for Klal Yisrael and for the Geula and for the city of New York. Okay, we have an amazing topic. Before that, I want to make sure you're well equipped. First of all, as you know, we're in Sefer Bereshis, so make sure you have your Bereshis Sefer in Lashon Kodesh. It's available right here or in better Sfarim stores near you. Make sure you have Yearning for Redemption so that you could be yearning for redemption. If you want to get it for free, go to marbitzetorah1@gmail.com. MARBITZITORAH1@gmail.com. And of course, Hanukkah is coming up. The light and the splendor. Today, we have good news. Today, it went to print finally. Ben La'ashri, the Birkat HaTzadik of the Tzadik Ranana. So that's in the queue. And Be'ezus Hashem, if anybody wants to be mishtatif in upcoming publications, please let us know. Okay, so I had different possibilities for the subject of tonight's shiur, but when I have the opportunity to speak about something related to the Chida, it's very hard to turn it down. You know, whenever the Chida comes in, that's generally going to be a go-to topic. The Chida wrote many Sifrei Halacha. The Chida Sfarim span really the full gamut of Torah and human knowledge. Of course, he wrote on Ala Torah, many different volumes. He wrote Penei David, he wrote Nachal Kidumim, he wrote Chaymas Anoch, he wrote on Tanakh, Tzavarei Shalal, he wrote on Shas, he wrote on bibliography, Shem Agdoilim, he wrote on travel, Magal Tov, and he wrote many Sifrei Halach. He wrote Birkat Yosef, and he also wrote Machzik Bracha. In Machzik Bracha, he brings a Dvar Torah, a halachic conversation that his father had with the Chida's Rebbe. One of the Rabbeim of the Chida was the Chazoin Nachum, Rabbi Eliezer Nachum, who was the Rishon Letzion. He was born in Istanbul in 1663 in Turkey. He comes up to Yerushalayim in 1695. He was the Rishon Letzion for 10 years. He passed away in 1745. And he was one of the great Rabbanim when the Chida was a young child. The Chida records, if you take a look in number 3, Shaus Teshuvas Chaim Sha'al, the Chida says that when I was a young child, the Rabbanim in Yerushalayim, and at the head of them, the Roish of all the Rabbanim in Yerushalayim was Rabbi Eliezer Nachum, the Chazoin Nachum. It's a Perush on Mishnayos. The Chazoin Nachum is a Perush on Mishnayos. And the Chida brings an unusual conversation that the Chida's father, who is the Chida's father? Rabbi Yitzchak Zerachiah. Rabbi Yitzchak Zerachiah. And lately I've been having Chalishas Hadas because I was once at the Chida's father's kever and I wasn't fully aware. So I marked down I have to go back to it because I've been to the Chida's great grandfather's kever, the Chesed Avram in Hebron. I've been at the Chida's original place of burial in Livorno. I've been to the Chida's kever on Har Menuchos. This summer I went to the Chida's son in Italy. What was the name of the city? The Chida's son's Reb Rafael Yeshaya Azulai is buried in Ancona, Italy. So it was a 4-hour drive from Rome. And I don't know if anyone's been there in the last many years because when we got there, the kever was completely covered. Anyway, I was once at the Chida's father's kever. Chida's father is buried right next to Zechariah Hanavi on Har HaZisim. And I had been there because I wanted to go there because you know who else is buried there? Bela Katz. Bela Katz is the wife of the Sma. And after the Sma passed away, Bela Katz traveled from Ukraine, from Lemberg to Eretz Yisrael. She was a very holy woman. In fact, her piskei halacha are quoted, what? By, right, about hadlakas neres, about the drisha and the prisha. And she's buried at the foot of Har HaZeisim. And so is Rabbi Yitzchak Zerachiah, the father of the Chida. But I don't know what happened at the time. So it's not recorded. And if it's not recorded, it never happened. So hopefully we could go back there. Actually, I have over here a sefer of a map of Har HaZeisim. I have a map. This is only Chelek Aleph. It's an amazing map. It happens to be, one time, I wanted to go to the kever of Reb Rafael Yosef Chazan, who was the grandfather of Reb Chaim Falaji. And I had this map. And even with the map, it took a very, 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 very long time to find it. But that did happen. And you know how we know it happened? Because it's recorded. So, but Reb Rafael, the Shaus was Chikrei Lev. Shaus Chikrei. And Reb Yitzchak Zerachia Azulai, the father of Chida, is buried right at the foot of Zechariah Hanavi, next to Bela Katz, next to Reb Chaim Abulafia. Anyway, Reb Yitzchak Zerachia Azulai was about 40 years younger than the Chazon Nachum, Reb Eliezer Nachum, the Chazon Nachum. And this is how the Chida records the story. By the way, I want to tell you two amazing things that the Chida said from his father. First of all, here we go. Chida brings down in the Sefer Kisei Rachamim that his father told him, Re'ei panecha loy filolti. When Yaakov Avinu sees Yosef, he says, I never thought I would have seen your face. Because, there's a halacha, you're not allowed to gaze at the face of a Rasha. You're not allowed to gaze at the face of a Rasha.
Recording stopped.
Okay. Oh, wow. No more space on this. Okay, so this hopefully will come out. So Yaakov Avinu thought, I never expected to be able to look at your face, Yosef. After hearing you went down to Mitzrayim, who knows what could have happened to you? Maybe I wouldn't be able to look at your face. Re'ei fanecha loy filolti. But the question is, why was Yaakov able to look at the face of Yosef? You ready for this? Because Yosef maintained his Kedusha. How did Yosef maintain his Kedusha? Because when Yosef was about to do the act, who appeared to Yosef? Yaakov appeared to Yosef. So listen to how the Chida's father reads the pasuk. V'hinei hera oisi Eloikim. So simply it's read, God, I never thought I would see your face, but wow, God showed me even your descendants. But the Chida's father interpreted, you know why I'm able to look at your face? V'hinei hera oisi Eloikim. God showed me to you. And that's what preserved your sanctity. V'hinei hera oisi Eloikim. Another Dvar Torah that the Chida brings in his Sefer Anshas Pesach Einayim from his father is that the Gemara says that if you're about to do an Avera, you should remember the day of death. Yazgir loi yom hamisa. Recall to him the day of death. So what do you mean recall to him? It should say Yizkar yom hamisa. What's Yizkar loi? Who's the him? So the Chida says it's the Yetzer Hara. Basically tell the Yetzer Hara, hey, pal, bug off. One day God's gonna shecht you. One day you're gonna die. Don't be such a hotshot. One day we're gonna kill you. So back off. Okay, that's interesting. So here we have it. We have to go here. At the foot of Har HaZeisim, kever number 6 is Rabbi Yitzchak Zerachia Azulai. Okay, so you ready? Here's the story. Fasten your seatbelts. In Simon Ratio Test in Orach Chaim, the Mechaber talks about the 4 people who have to thank Hashem. By the way, the remez is V'chal HaChaim Yoducha Sela. Chaim, there are 4 people who have to say Gomel. Chaim. Who are the 4 people? Choyle, someone who is ill. Yardei Hayam, someone who travels by the sea. Yisurin, someone who is let out of jail. And the 4th one is Midbar, someone who travels in a desert. Okay? These 4 people have to give Haida. So the story goes like this. Here is a conversation that took place between the venerable elder statesman and sage Rabbi Eliezer Nachum, the Chazon Nachum, with Ateres Roishi Abba Mari, with the father of the Chida, Rabbi Yitzchak Zerachia. And the reason why the Chida says he records it is because This way, the lips of both his Rebbe and his father will be doivivos bekever. However, this story goes where his Rebbe had a dream. Rabbi Chazai Nachum had a dream. Rabbi Eliezer Nachum had a dream. And in his dream, the Chazai Nachum sees the father of the Chida. And in his dream, the Chazai Nachum asks the father of the Chida a shaila. Now, the father of the Chida is 40 years younger than the Chazai Nachum. But this is all taking place in the dream of Rabbi Eliezer Nachum, the elder sage of Yerushalayim. My question to him that I saw in the dream was, please tell me, Rabbi Yitzchak, when Yitzchak Avinu was saved from the Akeida, did he bench Gomel? So he came to shul the next day, on Monday and Thursday. And so I was in a shul, I'm not going to say which one, where the guy by Mincha started duchening. No, in a regular Ashkenazi shul. But nobody realized. Nobody realized. You know why? Because everyone was on their phone. Nobody realized the regular, random, the guy could have been davening the Ilah. Everyone was on their phone. But it happened today. It happened today. So everyone's on their phone. And so why do I tell you that? Because imagine the father, the Chazai Nachum, imagine Yitzchak Avinu. So he's about to go into shul, so he puts away his phone, obviously. Otherwise, there's no point of going in. Don't even bother. Because you're not even going to know what they're doing. They could be singing, I don't know what. The Star Spangled Banner. You wouldn't even know. Anyway, so Yitzchak puts his phone away. He goes into the shul. And the Gabbai says, are you a chiyuv? Yitzchak says, chiyuv? I don't know, maybe, Yesterday was a rough day. Really? What happened? So long story, I was going on a walk with my father, and the next thing I know, I was tied up on the altar, and he lifted up the knife. And the guy was like, what happened? You wouldn't believe it. At the last second, the Malach told my father, don't touch me. So my father untied me. He found a ram, and he shechted the ram. So the Gabbai says, I think you're a chiyuv. Let me check if I have any other chiyuvim. So one guy claimed it was his grandmother's yard site. No, he made it up. It's not his grandmother's yard site. Anyway, so the Gabbai says, I think I could give you an aliyah. You decide whether you should bench Gomel. So this was the shaila Rabbi Eliezer Nachum asked the father of the Chida in a dream. Okay. He asked him another shaila. The Gemara in Chagiga talks about Daled Nichnas Lepardes. 4 sages, they started entering the mystical realms of Kabbalah. Rabbi Akiva and Ben Azai and Ben Zoyma. They were Nichnas Lepardes. And only Rabbi Akiva was Yatsa B'Shalom. The question is, one of them went at it, one of them lost their sanity, one of them went off, and only Rabbi Akiva emerged unscathed physically, mentally, spiritually. Did Rabbi Akiva bench Gomel when he came out of the Pardes? So Rabbi Akiva went to shul in the morning, and the Gabbai usually has a way of telling who the chiyuv is. It's the guy who's like, he's looking at the Gabbai, and when the Gabbai looks at him, he looks the other way. Usually the Gabbai, people have a way of communicating that they are a chiyuv, they're not a chiyuv. No, it's okay, you could give it to someone else. You know how it is. Did Rabbi Akiva bench Gomel after he came out of the Pardes? The next question Rabbi Yitzchak Harakiah asked the father of the Chida, who's 40 years younger than him. In the times of the second Beis HaMikdash especially, the Kohen Gadol was nichnas l'fnai v'l'fnim. And sometimes he would emerge, and often he wouldn't emerge. In the times of the second Beis HaMikdash, there were hundreds of Kohanim Gedolim, and many of them went in, and they never made it out. So if you were a lucky Kohen Gadol and you made it out, did you bench Gomel on the way out? I mean, if you go through a dangerous area, you might have to bench Gomel. So what if you go into the Kodesh HaGadoshim? Do you have to bench Gomel? So Rabbi Eliezer Nachum is looking at the father of the Chida, Rabbi Yitzchak Harakiah, and Rabbi Yitzchak Harakiah is just standing there. And he doesn't respond. He doesn't give any answer. No answer is given in the dream. Okay? End the story. End the story. But then, when Rabbi Yitzchak Harakiah woke up, He said, if I had a dream and I asked one of my Talmidim a shayla, then I need to ask them a shayla. So Rabbi Yitzchak, the Chazan Nachum, Rabbi Eliezer Nachum picks himself up. He goes to Chida's father. He knocks on the door, and he asks him in a state of awakeness these shaylas. Did Yitzchak Avinu bench Gomel after the Akeida? So here you have the answer of the Chida's father. An amazing answer. The Chida's father wrote a long, lengthy tshuva regarding this halachic topic. And you say, well, what's the relevance whether he bench Gomel or not? Well, first of all, well, it's relevant because what if your father wakes you up one day and says, God came to me in a dream and he told me, Kachna, as bincha, as yechidcha. So you're going to say, no, you love Beryl much better than me. He meant Beryl, he didn't mean me. He said Asher Ahavta, not me. He meant the other one. And Dad's going to say, no, you're my only son. I love you more than... No, so what is the relevance of the Shaila? You'll see. This actually will be the source of many, many cases of whether you bench Gomel or not, including, do you bench Gomel when you go on an airplane? The halachas of whether you bench Gomel when you go on an airplane will be learnt out of whether Yitzchak Avinu bench Gomel after the Akeida. I'm going to give you a little teaser because I think this might have to be 2 parts, and next week it's going to be Tuesday night. Can you handle that? Tuesday night next week. I have a wedding Wednesday night. So there is a psak of the Belzer Rebbe. Belzer Rebbe says, you do not bench Gomel when you travel by airplane. Rav Moshe, of course, says, you do bench Gomel. According to Rav Moshe, even like on a short flight, you would bench Gomel.
But didn't you just say one of the 4 is going over an ocean? Or?
I did say that, but we're going to learn many different principles, what the guidelines of Gomel are, and you'll see how traveling by airplane may not be the classic case that you're chayiv to bench Gomel. Okay, so the Rabbi Yitzchak Harakiah begins his tshuva, and again, this is quoted in the Machzik Bracha, and as the Sephardic Gedolim were wont to do, he paraphrases many psukim. He says, Noirois neflesi mimasa gei chizoyon halaz achein hoisa ala yad Hashem. That's a pasuk in Yeshaya, and then he paraphrases a pasuk in Yechezkel, Vayivieni el habika evka kashachar she'elasoi gam chakra, and then he paraphrases a pasuk in Daniel, and then he sets forth the following amazing principle. The Chachamim were never mesakein birchas Hagomel, which is a birchas Haida, only if it's a tzara that comes to a person against their will and a miracle happens. So for example, somebody, got lost in a desert. He didn't want to be there. And he was saved. You bench Gomel. Someone who became ill, nobody wants chas v'shalom to be ill. It came against their will, and Hashem saved them, then you bench Gomel. Someone was put into jail. Nobody wants to be in jail. Nobody asked to be in jail, except for in certain states in the United States. But most normal people don't want to be in jail. So if somebody gets out of jail, you bench Gomel. So says the father Chida, does a person want to be ill? Person gets ill against their will. And if a person is saved, they have to bench Gomel. Because if you're going to say that if a person willingly becomes ill, and what we're going to talk about in down the line is, what if a person tried to kill themselves and they messed up? Like most people are not successful. Do they then come to shul the next day and bench Gomel? The guy, the guy says to the guy, he's a chiyuv. So the guy said, what happened? He said, a miracle happened, my life was saved. Really? Who tried to kill you? Long story, right? So that's the question. If somebody tried to take their own life, chas v'shalom, do you bench Gomel? Well, the Gemara talks about Rabbi Eliezer Reb Shimon, who every night he would invite Yisurim to come to him. He would say, come, achai v'rei, my dear friends, come. And in the morning they would depart. What? And every day he would bench Gomel? So the first principle the father of the Chida sets forth is you only bench Gomel if it's a tzara that comes to you against your will and you're safe from it. Not something that you invite upon yourself. But what if it didn't come against your will? What if Hashem commanded you to do it? What if Hashem said, do this dangerous thing. Go take the life of your son. Or, let's say Hashem didn't come to you in a prophecy and say, go do this dangerous thing. What if Gentiles come and they threaten a person with their life if they don't violate the religion? And the person says, no, you know what, I'm going to stand up for my values and I'm going to risk my life. I'm going to give up my life, I'll kiddush Hashem. And then they're not killed. Do you bench Gomel? Absolutely not. You don't bench Gomel. If somebody's life was in danger because either Hashem told them explicitly or there's a command in the Torah, even if a miracle happens, you do not bench Gomel. Therefore, says the father of the Chida in the third paragraph, Ha'amnam, on the third line, V'chein ani omer, ki Yitzchak avinu, kivan sha'akol haya b'ma'amorai, God said, Kachna, es bincha, es yechidcha, asher ahavta, and Hashem decreed for him to be sacrificed even though he was saved. You don't make a bracha, and he didn't make a bracha. So here, Yitzchak came to Shul in the morning, and the Gabbai said, I saw on Yeshiva World that Avram Avinu put you on the Mizbeach last night, and at the last second the Malach came, we want to be mechabed you with an aliyah. So Yitzchak says, okay, I'll take an aliyah. So, and the Gabbai said, no, you can bench Gomel. He said, no, I'm not going to bench Gomel. Why? Because God told me to do it. There's no Gomel. God told me to do this. Gomel is when there's a situation that you didn't want to be in, some kind of situation against your will, and you were spared. But if Hashem commands you to do something, and then your life is saved, you don't bench Gomel. Okay, so Hashem told Avram. This is something that was specifically divinely decreed. So, says Rabbi Yitzchak Harakiah, no, you don't bench Gomel. Furthermore, he says to the Rebbe, to his Rebbe Chazon Nachum, why are you asking about whether Yitzchak benched Gomel when he emerged from the Akeida? You should have asked me a better question. You should have asked me, did Avram bench Gomel when he came out of Ur Kasdim? Nimrod threw him into the fire. Avram Avinu was breaking all the idols, and Terach complained to Nimrod. Nimrod took Avram, he threw him into the fire, and nothing happened to Avram. So did Avram bench Gomel? Yitzchak didn't bench because he said, no, my minhag is we don't bench Gomel. When we come out of fires, our family custom is we don't bench Gomel. But the rabbi said, but what does it say in Shulchan Aruch? No, we don't have a Shulchan Aruch yet. So don't ask about Yitzchak, ask about Avram. What about Moshe Rabbeinu? When Moshe Rabbeinu went up to Shamayim, and it says the Malachi Ashoris wanted to smite him. When an angel wants to smite you, it's very dangerous. When an angel smites you, it's not like, a little patch. You're done, you're toast. So when Moshe Rabbeinu and Hashem said, "Achois b'kisei hakavod," you need to come for shelter on the kisei hakavod. Did Moshe bench Gomel when he came down? How about Hanani, Mishael, Vazariah? Did they bench Gomel when they were saved from the fire? What about Daniel after he came out of the lions then? He benched Gomel? You could just imagine in Shul the next day, Hanani, Mishael, Vazariah, and Daniel. So which one gets the aliyah? The guy who was by the lion or the guy who was in the fire? So says Rabbi Yitzchak Harakiah, this is what I told you. If Hashem commands you to do something like Akedas Yitzchak, or Moshe Rabbeinu going up to Shamayim, even though he was saved, because Hashem said, Achois b'kisei hakavod, or Chanan Mishav Azariah, you do not bench Gomel. That's the first psak, and the first logic. You don't bench Gomel if God commands you to do something. Number two.
Everyone commanded to do it. Hanani, Azariah, and
so right, they were commanded.
They did it on their own.
This wasn't like they
said he's not going to say.
They didn't wake up in the morning and say, what should we do today? Let's jump in a fire. They did it because they're commanded. If the king says bow down to a statue, they're obligated and commanded to give up their life al Kiddush Hashem. So you're right. They didn't get a specific prophetic message, but they were commanded, as all Jews are commanded, to observe the Torah. That's what he writes, either befratus specifically, or in general to Mekadosh Shem Shemayim. Furthermore, Rabbi Yitzchak Harakiah says, Now this is not for a general audience, because they didn't tell you this in yeshiva. In yeshiva, when they told you the story of the Akeida, they said Avraham Avinu was getting things ready, he was about to shech Yitzchak, and then the last moment, the Malach said, don't touch him, right? And that's the way you're going to tell the little kids at the Shabbos Seder. You could leave it at that. But actually, that's not what happened. Now, it would have been nice if somewhere along the line, between when you were 3 years old and now, somebody would have told you what actually happened at the Akeida Yitzchak. It would have been nice. So I'm here to tell you that the Birkat Rebbe Lezer says that Avraham Avinu picked up the knife and Yitzchak died. Yitzchak died. Now we understand why they didn't want to tell us that in yeshiva. There's enough trauma. They didn't want to give us the full story. But the Birkat Rebbe Lezer says Yitzchak died. His neshama left him. And then when the voice cried out from between the two kruvim, Al tishlach yadcha anar, his soul returned. He was resurrected, revivified. Yitzchak got up on his feet. He said, I guess there's tchias hamesim, and he made the following bracha. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu machilam mechaye hamesim. You know, the second bracha of Shemana Esrei was composed by Yitzchak Avinu. So that means Yitzchak died. Now, just as an aside, Kabbalistically, don't discuss this now, okay? We know that Yitzchak did not even get married before the Akeida, because until the Akeida, he is always associated with the son of Sarah. Hine ben la Sarah. He's Sarah's son. Nowhere is he Abraham's son. He's Sarah's son. After the Akeida, Eila Toldos Yitzchak. The Zohar says, or Chaim brings in about 6 different places, that until the Akeida, he had a soul from Sitra Denukva, from the realm of female, and therefore it wasn't yet time for him to reproduce. At the Akeida he died, and then he got a new soul. He got a soul from a male soul, and now it's time to get married. That has nothing to do with any contemporary trend, okay? There's a Kabbalistic concept. Don't think, oh, you don't know. Don't apply what you think. This is just the Or HaChaim HaKadosh. This is in the realm of mysticism, okay? It is a very important lesson, because here Yitzchak thought this was the end of his life. It was actually the most beneficial thing that ever happened to him. The whole destiny of the Jewish people was brought about through the Akeida. It wasn't the end of Yitzchak and his progeny, it was the creation of Yitzchak. Anyway, says Rabbi Yitzchak Zrachia, you only bench Gomel if your life was in danger and you're saved, not if your life was in danger and you died. Gomel is for your life being saved, but Yitzchak's life wasn't saved. Yitzchak died, and then he was revivified. So now you want to know what bracha to make when you're resurrected? The bracha that he made. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu machilam mechaye hamesim. Why would he bench Gomel? He made the appropriate bracha. So no, Yitzchak didn't bench Gomel. You don't bench Gomel when you do what Hashem commands you to do, and you don't bench Gomel when you die. Which is good to know. Moving right along. What about the 4 Tanoim that were Nichnas Lepardes? What do you think happened? They went to the botanical gardens to see the cherry blossoms, right? The bonsai trees, the cactuses. Pardes is a mystical realm that through machshava, through contemplation, hisboidedus, their soul elevated into the realm of mysticism, and because of that, they were in some kind of danger. So they didn't go anywhere. They were in their own home. They were in the Beis Medrash. No, you don't bench Gomel when your soul begins to delve into the secrets of the universe. No Gomel is necessary when your soul delves into the secrets of the universe. Now, regarding, does the Kohen Gadol bench Gomel when it comes out of the Kodesh Kadashim? So you should know the answer to that already. It's not like the Kohen Gadol woke up in the morning, I really got to get out more. Let me go to the Holy of Holies. He has to go to the Holy of Holies. This is the mitzvah of Yom Kippur. This is the avodah of Yom Kippur. He's doing it ki chen yisad hamelech, in order to gain Slicha, Mechila, v'chapar for Klal Yisrael. So the same reason we applied to Yitzchak, why Yitzchak didn't bench Gomel, because Hashem commanded Avram, so too the Kohen Gadol did not bench Gomel. Also, it's not dangerous to go into the Kodesh HaKodashim. If you're a good guy, it's not dangerous. Oh, but he's not a good guy. So you're going to bench Gomel, that even though the guy is a Rasha, he survived. Well, he wouldn't have survived. And if he's a good guy, he will survive. Nobody is surviving if they don't deserve it. So who exactly is benching Gomel? If you make it out, then it wasn't dangerous. And if you don't make it out, it's very hard to bench Gomel if you don't make it out also. You know, they've done studies that if you don't make it out of the Kodesh HaKodashim, it's proven very difficult to bench Gomel the next day in Shul. Not that you're going to be any less attentive than the guy on his phone. In other words, let's say you have two guys. One guy's on his phone and one guy is dead. The level of kavanah they're having in davening is basically the same. It's the same exact thing. It's not like the guy who's dead is giving any less effort than the guy who brought his phone in. But in terms of Hilchos Gomel, then the guy who's dead is going to have a very hard time benching Gomel. No, right. I'm not a big fan of bringing the phone in. Yes. Now, besides that, it's a machlokes in the mechaber whether do only the four people who, let's say, someone who's sick, someone who's in jail, someone who crossed the sea, someone who crossed the desert, or do only they bench Gomel? Only the v'chol hachayim yodu chasela, only they bench Gomel? And the Rivash, on the other hand, holds any kind of danger would bench Gomel. So even according to the Rivash, that anyone benches Gomel for any dangerous situation. So we already said, but not for this kind of situation because they were commanded by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But certainly according to the other opinion, that it's only the four people specifically delineated in the Gemara that bench Gomel, then certainly for the above mentioned three situations, Yitzchak Avinu at the Akeida, the Arba Hanichnas Lepardes, and the situation of the Kohen Gadol, they would not bench Gomel. So this was the tshuva that when the Chazon Nachum woke up, he came to his Talmud, Rabbi Yitzchak Harakiah, and Rabbi Yitzchak Harakiah said, no, Yitzchak did not bench Gomel. God told him to do it, and furthermore, he died and he came back. Why would he bench Gomel? So once the Chazon Nachum heard this response from Rabbi Yitzchak Harakiah, he said, now that I'm up, I vehemently disagree with every single point that you just made. He did not concede even one of these points. He said, number one, the Medrash says in the Yalkut that Avram Avinu said, Yitzchak, your blood began to spill slightly, so we have to do something. And his eyes were yearning for the Shechina, and he davened Esoinai al Haharim, and just then a ram appeared. By the way, talking about that ram, why that ram? Anybody know where that ram came from? It was created on sixth day of creation, Ben Hashmashas. Why? Why that ram? I happened to see this morning a beautiful explanation that this ram is in lieu of Yitzchak. When Chava ate from the Eitz Hadas, she not only ate from the Eitz Hadas, she gave the Eitz Hadas to all the animals. So all the animals were defiled and impugned by the Eitz Hadas. But there's one animal that was not affected by the Eitz Hadas because it was created after the sin of the Eitz Hadas. So not he and not any of his, and he's not a descendant of any of the animals. The ram that was created on the sixth day after the Chida of the Eitz Hadas, that ram was transcended the sin of the Eitz Hadas. In any event, Rabbi Eliezer Nachum says, since Hashem bailed Yitzchak out of this dangerous situation, and he allowed Avraham to find the ram, obviously he gave a Shavach Vayda HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The next morning he came to Shul, and he benched Gomel. Also, if you look in the Birkat of Rebbe Lezer, there it says that the Malachi Asher said to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ribono Shel Olam, you're a Rachum V'Chanun, you're going to let Avraham shecht Yitzchak. So that implies that Yitzchak needed Rachum V'Chanun. If he needed compassion, if he needed grace, then certainly he benched Gomel. And you say, well, but the Birkat of Rebbe Lezer says he died. Birkat of Rebbe Lezer says he died. So said the Chazon Nachum, I don't understand. When I came to you in a dream, you think I was asking based on the Birkat of Rebbe Lezer? My Shaila was not working with the Birkat of Rebbe Lezer. My Shaila was working with the simple psukim. And when I have dreams, I don't ask Shailas. I was asking based on the way it's taught in yeshiva. And in yeshiva, they don't teach that he died. So my Shaila was based on the simple narrative. According to the elementary understanding of the Akeida, did Yitzchak bench Gomel? And now you asked me, why did I ask a question about Yitzchak? I should have asked about Avraham. When I came to you in a dream, it wasn't me. It was the Baal HaChaloim. Not, just because you see yourself in a dream. Now this is very important. You ever see yourself in a dream? Raise your hand right now. If you see yourself in a dream. Could we go on record that you see yourself in dreams? This fine gentleman, this young man over here, when he sees himself in dreams, he thinks it's him just because it looks like him. No. It's the Baal HaChaloim. It's not necessarily you. You know, nowadays they could take AI and they can make it like anyone is saying anything. Anyone is saying anything. They have John F. Kennedy giving a speech how everyone should listen to TorahAnytime.com. They have Martin Luther King promoting Torah Anytime. Why? You take the voice, you take the personality, and you dub words onto. I was contacted this week if I want somebody to make the shiurim in Hebrew. So what do you mean in Hebrew? Subtitles? No. Dub. I said, dub? Yeah. They could make it, take any speaker, and make him say the exact same thing he's saying in English in any language, and you wouldn't know the difference, even though that speaker never spoke that language. And I show you. Anyway, but it happens to be they could do it in any language. English is the hardest one to do it in. They're not up to doing it in English. They could do it in any language. They could do it in Hebrew. They could do it in French. They could do it in Spanish. But they can't take English into Hebrew. Okay, I'll explain more later. What I'm saying is the Chazon Nachum tells the father of the Chida that when he came to him in a dream, it wasn't him, it was the Baal HaChaloim. Now you want to know, did Avraham bench Gomel when he came out of Ur Kasdim? I'll tell you what bracha he said. The Medrash says what bracha he said, that after he saved from Ur Kasdim, he said, Baruch Ata Hashem Magen Avraham. Avram Avinu composed the first bracha of Shemona Esrei when he was saved from Ur Kasdim. What about, you say that the Dalet Shenichnas Lepardes, they didn't bench Gomel because they didn't go to the botanical gardens? Who cares what gardens they went to? Were their lives in danger? Yes. If so, I say they bench Gomel. Question. You wake up in the morning. Do you say Elokai Neshama? Yeah, we say. What do we say? Hamachazir Neshamais Lifgarim Mesim. You return the soul to corpses. Well, the person died in the middle of the night? They were dead? What do you mean Hashem restored our soul to corpses? We weren't corpses. You don't wake up in the morning and you look outside and you're in Elmont or in Bethday. You're in your bed. So what do you mean corpses? The answer is what? It's a 60th of Misa. So it's like death. So too, if you go to the proverbial Pardes and you're in danger, you should bench Gomel. And what about the Kohen Gadol? What did the Kohen Gadol do when he came out of the Kodesh HaKadoshim? Says the Chazai Nachum, there is no question that he went to shul, and he said he's a chiyuv, and he benched Gomel. So the Chazai Nachum disagreed with every single point that Rabbi Yitzchak Zerachia Azulai made. Rabbi Yitzchak Zerachia said, no, if Hashem commands you to do something, you don't bench Gomel. And even if you're not commanded specifically, but if you have a mitzvah to do something and you're in danger, you don't bench Gomel. And certainly if you die and you come back, you don't bench Gomel. The Chazai Nachum, who is the senior Rav in Yerushalayim, he disagreed with every single point. Now, what does the Chida say? Surprisingly, the Chida offers no opinion, no commentary. He just brings down the story as it occurred. He quotes it verbatim, and he offers no halachic conclusion whether Yitzchak benched Gomel when he came out of the Akeida or not. Okay, so this brings us to many very interesting halachic topics that the poskim discuss. Many different situations of whether you bench Gomel or not. And let's begin. We'll go venture a little further. We're going to learn one more Mara Makom tonight from, I don't know if we ever saw this particular sefer in depth. The name of the sefer is Pesach HaDevir. Pesach HaDevir is a very early commentary on Shulchan Aruch, written by Reb Chaim Binyamin Pantrimoli. Reb Chaim Binyamin Pantrimoli, who was a rabbi in Turkey, and even before the Chida, I believe. No, a little bit after the Chida. And he discusses this question of whether Avram Avinu benched Gomel when he was saved from the Kivshan Aish, and whether Yitzchak Avinu benched Gomel when he was saved from the Akeida. And he cites the whole discussion between the father of the Chida and the Chazai Nachum. But he says, in his opinion, the father of the Chida is absolutely correct. Okay? Based on the following medrash. The medrash tells us, if you look at number 5, in Shmois Rabbah, Parsha Chav Gimel Ois Daled, it says that when Klal Yisrael crossed the Yam Suf, Oz Yashir Moshe. Then Moshe sang. That implies then, and until then, nobody ever sang. Says the Medrash, Miyoim Shabara HaKadosh Baruch Hu Es HaOlam, from the day God created the world, Va'ad Sha'amdu Yisrael Al Hayam, until the Jewish people stood at the sea, Lo Yimatzinu Adam Sha'amar Shira LaKadosh Baruch Hu Ela Yisrael. Nobody ever sang to God. Bara Adam Arishain. He created Adam. V'lo Amar Shira. Adam didn't sing Shira. Even though you could ask, what do you mean? He said, Mizmar, Shir, Liyayim HaShabbos. No, Adam didn't sing. Hitzel Avraham Mikivshan Ha'esh. Umin HaMelachim. V'lo Amar Shira. He didn't sing. V'chein Yitzchak min HaMacheles. V'lo Amar Shira. V'chein Yaakov min HaMalach. Umin Esav. Umin Shechem. V'lo Amar Shira. Kivan Shabo Yisrael Hayam. Klal Yisrael came to the sea. V'nikor lahem. And the sea was torn. Miyad Amru Shira lefnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu shenemar. Az Yashir Moshe Uvnei Yisrael. Nobody ever sang until Klal Yisrael. Not Adam, not Avraham, not Yitzchak, not Yaakov. Nobody, not until Klal Yisrael. Now, well, here's a little trivia. Anybody know? What is the most, maybe we could say, important commentary on Medrash Rabbah? The most important commentary on Medrash Rabbah. It's called Yefei Tayar. You ever see the Yefei Tayar? For some reason, it was not really in print for a very, very long time. They recently reprinted it. In the Eitz Yosef and the Anaf Yosef, they'll bring it in short, abbreviated. But the full Yefei Tayar on the Medrash is the classic commentary on the Medrash. It was written by Rav Shmuel Yafa Ashkenazi, who's a very early commentary. He lived from 1525 to 1595. He was also a rabbi in Turkey, and he's bothered. Why didn't Avraham sing Shira? Why didn't Yitzchak sing Shira? Why didn't Yaakov sing Shira? So the Yefei Torah says, well, Adam didn't sing Shira because he said, the Gemara says that a person's better off not being created. So why am I singing Shira that Hashem created me? And Avraham didn't sing Shira because he knew that Hashem put him in the fire only for the honor of Hashem. So it wasn't for him. That's why Hashem saved him. And Yitzchak didn't sing Shira because Yitzchak said, if I sing Shira, it's going to look like, boy, am I happy I didn't sacrifice my life for God. And Yaakov didn't sing Shira because he thought he lost his chusim. Says the Pesach Hadvir, doesn't it seem like that Yitzchak did not bench Gomel? That's what the Medrash says. Nobody sang Shira. So you say, what? He benched Gomel, but he didn't sing Shira? Why would you say that? The Pesach Hadvir says, in his opinion, it seems like the Yefei Torah and Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and Moshe all support the view of the father of the Chida that when Hashem commands you to do something, you do not bench Gomel. The only thing is, it supports the father of the Chida, but it doesn't support the father of the Chida. It supports the father of the Chida that he's right that Yitzchak didn't bench Gomel. But at the end of the day, the Medrash says nobody ever sang until Kriyas Yamsuf. And the Medrash says Klal Yisrael was right, which implies that everyone before was incorrect. So halachically, it implies, the implication is, that if Hashem commands you to do something and it's dangerous and you're saved, perhaps you should say Shira.
They were commanded.
Yeah, so they sang Oz Yashir. That's Ein Lecha. Is that Gomel? Is that's a Shira?
What about Yosef when he came out of
the pit?
Prison, out of prison?
Did Yosef bench Gomel when he came out of jail? Okay, that's another one. And then the Pesach Hadvir goes on to deal with a very interesting question, because this nobody has dealt with, nobody even asked until now, because there's an obvious personality who you would think for sure fits the bill of somebody who should bench Gomel. I would say that this individual definitely is Miyardei Hayam. I think so. I think Noach would be a good example of someone who's Yardei Hayam. I think he was on a boat. And I think he crossed, he was in danger. The Pesach Hadvir says on the second side, it's mashma that regarding the salvation of Noach, even though, on the one hand, Noach, if you're going to say that if Hashem commands you to be in a dangerous situation, you don't bench Gomel, well, Hashem told him, build a teva and get inside. Even though it was against his will, he didn't want to go into the teva. He actually went in forcibly. Af Noach mikatani amonahaya. But still, according to the principle of the father of the Chida, that if Hashem commands you to go somewhere and you're saved, you don't bench Gomel, even though the Medrash Rabbah says, who says the following pasuk? Haitzia mimasker nafshi, that for 12 months Noach was davening, Ribbono Shel Olam, get me out of here. But it's not like he wanted to be there. Hashem commanded him to be there. But on the other hand, definitely he's Miyardei Hayam. And the Medrash even says that when Hashem locked the door of the Teva, Noach is considered like he's in jail. And he says, let me out, Lo hoidoi says shemecha. Bi achtiru tzadikim ki sigmail. What's ki sigmail? So I could bench Gomel. So that means Noach says, get me out of here, so I could bench Gomel. That supports the Chazoi Nachum. that even when Hashem commands you to do something, and you do it, and you're saved, you do have to bench Gomel. So there's somewhat of a contradiction. On the one hand, the Medrash implies that no, Avraham did not bench Gomel, he didn't sing Shira, and Yitzchak didn't sing Shira, and Yaakov didn't sing Shira. And on the other hand, the implication is Noach did sing Shira. After all, Noach brought karbanos. What kind of karban do you think it was? It was a karban taida. So this really becomes a foundation of many, many shailos in benching Gomel. If somebody was saved from the Holocaust, do they bench Gomel? If somebody was saved from a dangerous situation, do they bench Gomel? If somebody decides to go to Eretz Yisrael, do you bench Gomel? So you say, yeah, they crossed the Yam. No, crossing the Yam is somebody who is in a very desperate situation, and they're running away and they have no choice but to go through a Yam. But if you decide, let me do something reckless and go across a Yam, and you're saved, you don't bench Gomel. You're out of your mind. Yeah? So you don't bench Gomel. If somebody decides to swim with sharks and they're saved, you don't bench Gomel. Nobody asked you to do it. So now you're going to bench Gomel because you decided you want to go to Eretz Yisrael. Nobody said you want to go. They're great. But why are you benching Gomel? Do you bench Gomel? Or if somebody did not take care, they went outside without a coat on, and they caught a cold, and then they were in a dangerous situation, and then they were saved. They brought it on themselves. So basically, most of the subject matter of benching Gomel is going to be predicated on this dream that the Rebbe in Yerushalayim, Reb Eliezer Nachum, came to the father of the Chida and asked him, did Yitzchak Avinu bench Gomel when he came down from the Akeida? And Reb Yitzchak Zerachia said, absolutely not. And the Chazai Nachum says, of course he did. And much of the subject of benching Gomel is learnt out from this theoretical shaila. And Bez Hashem, maybe next week we'll see how it plays out. Halach l'maisa. Shkayach. Tuesday night. And also, one second, late breaking news. I think the Israeli family is dedicating this year's shiurim Le'ilei Nishmas Malka Bas Dina. Began Eden Tehim Nuchasa. Shkayach.
Why did Yitzchak have to bench Gomel? He was killed. You don't bench Gomel if you're killed.
If somebody's killed and they come back,
You don't bench Gomel. He was killed.